Hey, hi, hello everyone. So today we are going to uh, discuss about and be clear about what is the exact difference between Python and R, right? So before we dive into what we are going to discuss, right? Let me give you a brief introduction about myself. Okay, so I am Shiksha. I am working as a senior data scientist manager uh, with eClubs. It's been over 6 years of experience for me building analytics and ML service solutions for Fortune 500 clients and also startups. I have solved business problems for manufacturing, entertainment, forecasting algorithms, build recommender systems, prediction and regression algorithms, etc. for all these clients and all these startups, right? So I bring with myself 6 years of experience into data science and machine learning, and I've been a data scientist myself, and right now I'm managing a team of around 3 to 4 junior data scientists. So moving on, coming back to our topic, right? So before that, if you want to connect with me, you can also connect with me on LinkedIn, link to which is there in the video, right? Moving on, what is the difference between Python versus R? And I genuinely want to answer this question. Why? Because most of the freshers who want to start with data science are really stuck with this question: whether they should we start with R? Should we learn Python, or should we do both? Correct. So now there's no exact answer to this that you should go with Python and not R, or you should go with R and not Python. There's no exact differentiation. So just to answer this question once and for all, I would really like to go walk you guys through what is Python, what is R, right, uh, and how do they differ, so that you can answer this question for yourself. Okay, so Python and R for really beginners, right? These are both programming languages, right? Which are similar in a few ways, of course. Both are open source, obviously, and freely available to use. Both have multiple use cases for data science and analysis, correct? Uh, but both significantly differ. Let me say both significantly differ when it comes to their usage, applications, and what domain they are being used in. Okay. Uh, Now, when we say usage, what do you mean by usage? So there are multiple types of usage, right? You need to develop AI products. You can do a statistical analysis. You can do a data analysis. You might want to develop a forecasting product, right? Which can forecast for a specific domain, let's say manufacturing, right? So what would you use over there? Now, what is the type of requirement that will also uh, be a deciding factor whether to go for Python or R, correct? Now, talking about these things, right? You also tend to think, if I'm doing forecasting, I can do it in R and also in Python. Now, how would you answer the question? Now, the answer relies on your requirements. What kind of requirements do you have, right? Do you really want to develop a full-fledged product? Do you really want to do a one standalone analysis, or do you really want to do a recurring analysis, right? And if it is a recurring analysis, is it going to be delivered automatically? It has to be automated or not. So there are multiple factors which come into effect or come into play to decide what programming language, R or Python, to use for that requirement. Correct. Moving on. So to go through these things, right, to answer these questions, we need to understand what are the advantages of Python, right? What are the disadvantages of Python? And then at the end, we will understand what are the usage and applications of Python, right? Once we do that, we'll also go through what are the advantages, disadvantages, and applications of R as well. And then we will do a comparative study on both of them. Now, coming to advantages of Python, right? Obviously, it's the major advantages which are listed down over here. Uh, I think they answer all of the questions related to the advantages of Python. It is flexible. It is open source. It has a huge support for different types of libraries, right? And it's productivity, right? The productivity is depending on the control capabilities and the short learning curve, and as well as the kind of the texture of the code, right? The way the syntax is arranged also helps you maximize your productivity by shipping the software and the products quickly, right? Embeddable is basically Python codes are embeddable, right? Python codes can be integrated with chipsets and and different hardware, right? Because it's the fundamental on which the Python language is built is C and C++. Libraries being libraries, it has huge support for libraries. Why? Because you can see most of the new libraries which are coming in are also uh, from the big community which the Python supporters have, right? Python is a hugely uh, supported language which has a very very high and very very strong community which basically provides a humongous support. So it has regular updates. The libraries are regularly updated. Big corporations are supporting these. Google, Microsoft are basically working on to developing libraries such as PyTorch from Facebook. We have TensorFlow from Google, which are built on Python, right? Flexibility is one of the most important factors when it comes to advantages of Python. Right? It is neat, uncomplicated to use, and well structured. Right? What does it mean? Right? When we say well structured, uh, it is really following a very standard structure. It's very easy to learn. Right? It's more easier to learn than R. That would I say. That's something what I would say. It is object oriented, but it makes transition to functional features, allowing itself into different paradigms of programming. So when you talk about programming, there are two types of programming, right? Functional programming and object oriented. So this is one language where it can transition into functional as well as object oriented. So it supports both types of paradigms. And this is a really good one when you basically just want to do an EDA. You don't want to get into object oriented programming, right? And when you want to develop a software, you want all the features of object oriented programming, right? So this is something wherein Python has a very very upper hand when it can basically act as both the types of languages, right? And yes, so now again, let's we have talked about advantages, right? And what are the disadvantages of Python? Now talk about disadvantages. Speed. I won't say it's really slow, but when you compare it to Java and the likes of C++, it is an interpreted language, and thus is relatively slower than other programming languages like Java, C, and C++. So that is a thing which basically needs can be categorized as a disadvantage. And then coming to mobile environment, right? Python is not suitable for Android and iOS, and that's why when you want to develop Android apps and mobile iOS apps, right, you would need some other language like Go or something which basically supports mobile development and mobile environments. Memory consumption in Python is significantly higher when compared to the languages like C++ and Java, because it consumes a more significant amount of RAM, right? The process gets slower when more objects need to be accessed, right? And that's where Python lacks. Database access layers. When we talk about database access layers, let's talk about what are database access layers. Database access layers are some kind of functions or you can say classes built into a language which are sort of act as an API which lets you access multiple databases like Oracle, SQL. Since you're developing a language, right? If you're developing a software, you need to integrate it with your database, right? Otherwise, it's of no use. How will you access data? So to access those databases, generally what happens is a programming language would like C++ or Java would already have inbuilt these APIs or layers, which we call JDBC in Java, right, or ODBC. So that helps the developers to basically develop the database access layers or the APIs or connectivities to the databases faster. This is somewhat lacking into Python, although we already have something like SQL Alchemy, which are the library which helps you connect with databases there, but it's still in a very, very initial phase and we need more support over there. So that's where that's one more area where Python is lacking. Now, moving on, threading. What is threading? Threading is basically a flow of multiple functions at the same time in a very, very in a very naive way. You can say that you can basically help access multiple functions at the same time. And this kind of parallel programming, or we can say parallel processing, is not available in Python because of its global interpreter lock. We can dive deeper into it if you want to read more about it. You can go and Google it. What is global interpreter lock? But this is something which keeps Python from accessing the feature of threading, right? So these are some of the major disadvantages we have in Python. And moving on, coming to usage and applications, right? This is where Python actually excels when it comes to ML and artificial intelligence. Now, this is one of the most you can say the most strong use case which Python holds, right? Machine learning and artificial intelligence. Due to proper support in Python, and for machine learning and artificial intelligence, almost 80% of the applications run on Python, right? There are also supports in there's Java, there's C++, but for Python, as the flexibility offers, the number of libraries, the amount of support it offers for ML and AI applications, and the libraries it has, TensorFlow, PyTorch, scikit-learn, of course, pandas we have, right? So these are all the libraries which basically makes it very easier to do machine learning and artificial intelligence development in Python, because it is complex data analysis support. It is ML and AI models using TensorFlow, PyTorch, because this is really easier, right? When you have a library like TensorFlow and PyTorch, developing an AI model becomes really easier because they have already inbuilt APIs, which lets you develop them quicker and utilize them to your needs. And you can also customize those APIs as per your needs, and avoid writing it from scratch, right? Then we have data visualization support as well, because we need to analyze data. Then you also need to visualize the data in graphs or charts. And libraries such as Seaborn, Matplotlib, and Plotly offer that functionality as well. Coming to web development, we have API development support using libraries such as Flask, Fast API, Django, which are coming from their active community support, right? We have also inbuilt support for HTTP protocols using requests library, which comes inbuilt with Python programming or a Python installer when you install it. Coming to game development, right? Python is also excelling into developing add-ons and plugins for games, right? For example, games like Pirates of the Caribbean, Bridge Commander, and Battlefield 2 use Python programming for a wide range of functionalities and add-ons. So the libraries such as PyGames, Panda 3D, and Cocos 2D, right, make the game development process completely effortless. These libraries offer some APIs or functions which basically you know uh, like simplify the process of game development and simplify the process of add-ons, right? Developing the add-ons when it comes to graphics, right? So audio and visual applications, right? We have plethora of audio and visual applications which involve an intersection of artificial intelligence as well, right? So developing a image processing software, you can use OpenCV, which is a Python library, which is very, very heavy, which is specifically built for processing images and videos, right? Then you have applications like Deja and Mingus, which are basically also there for audio and video analysis and manipulation, right? And then many more such business applications like and software development and CAD applications are there in Python, right? And CAD, when I say CAD is basically about developing, you know, product designs or graphic designs, and then we use softwares like CAD, correct? So moving on about R, right? What are the advantages of R? What are the disadvantages of R usage in applications, right? Let's talk about those as well. So advantages. Obviously, it is open source. It is platform independent data wrangling, right? Plots and graphs and package availability. Open source, of course, it is R is an open source software, right? As or a language, and it is free to download. You can also basically contribute to it by optimizing its source code, right? There's a GitHub which is basically about R, and you can go through it if you want to basically optimize its performance somewhere, and you are a good developer, right? So you can also make your own contribution over there. Obviously, it is platform independent. It doesn't matter whether you have Windows, Mac, or Unix. It runs the same way. It is a platform independent language, and hence you do not need to do anything specific to Windows or Mac in order to use it, right? Data wrangling, people prefer R. R is a go-to language for statistical analysis or data wrangling because it's packaged like read R and deploy, right? R is the capability of converting a massive code into a structured one. Well, that's a great capability. Plots and graphs, we already have ggplot and plotly. R creates attractive graphs with notations and formulas with minimal amount of coding. And that is a really rare capability which R has, right? It's a very unique capability. Can create customizable and very, very interactive and attractive graphs just using 2 or 1 line of code. Whereas in Python, you might have to write at least 3 to 4 lines of code. Package availability. R has numerous packages dedicated to the development of machine learning, data analysis, and statistical projects. So R is a very statistically and data analysis sort of heavy language, right? People do prefer it for standalone analysis, right? Uh, and that's where it excels as well. Now coming to disadvantages of R, right? R consumes more memory as all the objects. It's again the same issue, right? It has more memory consumption as all objects get stored in the physical memory. Over time, as the program has bigger data, the process slows down. So R is really lacking when it comes to processing big data because of its the way it's structured. It keeps on accumulating those objects into its physical memory, and then that overloads the memory or the RAM of the machine, right? And hence, when it is the program basically gets bigger data, the data get the scale of the data gets bigger, the process gets slowed down, right? Coming to security, R lacks basic security that makes it practically difficult to embed in web applications. So due to the lack of basic security, right, you cannot embed it into web applications to develop APIs. Next is difficult. The curve, right? The curve to learn R is a bit steeper than what it is to Python, right? Because R has a difficult syntax than Python. Slow runtime, obviously. R is a slow processing language. In comparison, we said, right? In comparison to the language such as MATLAB, obviously, is also used for graphics, and it was used for somewhat data analysis as well before Python became a big breakthrough, right? Such as MATLAB and Python, it takes more time to give an output. It's the processing or the runtime of the R codes or R programs is higher than usually what it is in MATLAB and Python. Data handling in R is tedious and it requires all the data to be in one place. That's why I said that whenever we're going to go for a standalone data analysis, right? That's when only R is preferred. If you want to do a distributed data analysis, you cannot use R because R requires the data to be in one place. Maybe it is in flat files or in single table. You just need to have this data in a single place. So it is not ideal for big data. However, it does have an integration that makes handling slightly easier, but it's not widely accepted yet at a production level, right? So coming to usage and applications, right? So R has very limited usage and application. That's something what I would say because mostly people, the analysts or the data scientists, right? They prefer it only when they want to do a standalone analysis, right? Wherein just want to they have a set of data, they want to do an ED on it, they want to derive some insights out of it, and then that's just a one-off analysis. They are not looking to develop a model, deploy it, create an API around it, and keep on inferencing from it, right? And time on time, retrain it and redeploy it. So that's something which is only possible. I can say which is not possible in R, right? Uh, so again, the disadvantages like security will come into picture, handling big data, slow processing time. This will keep us from using R over into a production environment, right? So that's when we do not want R to be used for developing web applications due to its limitations in in processing time, in security, and in support such as processing distributed data, like or the big data. Statistical inference and research, right? R has a very huge support or a fan base when it comes to academic research, right? So when you do want to do a mathematical or scientific research, right, you would basically prefer R because it has huge inbuilt support for statistical libraries and some research to develop some algorithms in statistics or do a statistical analysis for inference and various other purposes, correct? So although it's limited, but it's really high when it comes to statistical research. So now that we know about what R is, what Python is, let's do a side by side, a comparative study of both these languages, right? So what is Python? Python, as we see, is a general purpose language that is used for the deployment and development of various projects. Python has all the tools required to bring a project into production environment. So the point to note over here is the production environment, right? Why do we prefer Python for production environments over R? So R is a statistical language. So the point to note over here is people look at R as a statistical language used for the analysis and visual representation of the data, which is a standalone piece of data. And it's a standalone analysis. So you cannot use it for production. It's more of a scripting language, right? So R is more of a scripting language as of now. Python is better suitable for machine learning, deep learning, and large scale web applications due to multiple reasons which are disadvantages in R. Like R is suitable for statistical learning, having powerful libraries for data experiment and exposition. So that's a big difference, right? Now, Python has a lot of libraries, right? However, it can be complex to understand all of them. R has fewer libraries compared to Python and is easy to know, right? Python can be used for various purposes like building a graphical user interface, GUI, right? Develop games, etc. As we have seen before. And despite being an object-oriented language, it also supports developing games, graphical user interface. So it's a multitude of use cases, right, which Python supports. Along with object-oriented programming, R can also be used to develop music, right? Since R music is nothing but waves, right? Signals, and signals can also be studied using statistics. So R has a huge support for those scientific research and statistical research which can be used to develop music. So Python has a simple syntax and it's very easy to learn. R is a relatively complex syntax, and the learning curve is not straightforward, as we have seen before in the disadvantages as well, right? Okay. Python's statistical packages are less powerful. R statistical packages are highly powerful, which is obvious, right? As we have seen before, because its major use case, the R's major use case is doing statistical research, which obviously answers that question. Python is mainly used when the data analysis needs to be integrated with lab applications, as we've seen before, right? When you're doing some standalone analysis, you can use R, but when it comes to integrating and automating a certain analysis or inference or develop models with web applications, you need to go with Python. R is generally used when the data analysis task requires standalone computation and processing, uh, which is obviously we have discussed before as well. Python can be used to build applications from scratch. R can be used to simplify complex mathematical problems, right? So if you have complex mathematical problems, you can use R to formulate it, to simplify it, and to model it, right? There are many Python IDEs available to choose from. A few of them are Jupyter. We have Notebook. We have Jupyter Notebook. We have Spider. We have PyCharm. A few of IDEs. So R does not have more IDEs. We have R Studio, which is widely used, and then there's one more StatET, which is sometimes used, but most of the times we prefer R Studio. Python is more popular and has a vast user base. Primary users of Python include developers and programmers. R is less popular among users. Its users include scientists and research and development who frequently rely on data analysis, right? Of course, it's more of a statistical research, and hence statistical programmers or academic researchers would prefer R over Python because they don't want to deploy it anything over production. They just want to prove a point using data analysis. So that's all from me, guys. So before signing off, let me answer one more question, which I think you might also still be having, right? So what should we do now? You should before answering that question, you need to ask yourself: Do you really want to what's it? Do you really want to maybe really go for research and do an academic research in statistics, or do you want to basically become a programmer or developer? So now the question relies on you. First of all, you need to develop this issue tree or the answer tree, right? You want to do data science or statistics. Now that is fixed, okay? Something in data science and machine learning. Now you want to ask yourself, do you want to be a researcher do you want to be a R&D person or a R&D person, academic researcher, or do you want to be a programmer or a data scientist who basically implements algorithms, right? And develops models, deploys them into production, and then retrains them. And so kind of developing an AI product or AI system. You want to be that person or person B or a person A who's basically a researcher who develops new algorithms and writes research papers, keeps on developing new state-of-the-art models, working on them, research them, right? If your answer is A, right? If it is a statistical research or academic research, you want to go for R, or maybe still at least start with R, right? Because you will be able to access more statistical power of that language. For a person B, I would strongly suggest to go for Python because 95% of the people are person B. Because there is 5% of the people who are basically becoming researchers and developing new algorithms, right? They start with R, they exploit its statistical capabilities, right? And they obviously publish research papers. That's what we consume and implement them into our production, right? Now 95% of the people are person B. So you would really like to become a person who basically implements algorithms, develops models using those algorithms, and deploys them into production as per the business requirement, right? So that's more commercial or the corporate we are basically going to solve for your clients. So I've given you guys, right? So now it's yours to decide whether you want to become a person A or B. Where are your capabilities? What would you like to pursue as your career into data science and artificial intelligence? So I'll be signing off with that. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I've shared my LinkedIn connect with you guys already in the video before, right? Thank you.